Hello everybody. How's it going? I am Bill Ward. I am the host of this event. This is kind of like a collaboration thing that Athabasca Fort Chipewyan First Nation and Billwardlife, my organization, we kind of teamed up to do something to help their community. The first one that we ever did was back in December. We just kind of contained it to ACFN, and then the administration people at ACFN said, "Can we just open this up to all people?" So from that point on, we started opening it up to all people, and basically, kind of what it is it's like a Indigenous in recovery type forum. Um, what I do is I know a lot of people in recovery. I'm in recovery. I do a lot of things in recovery, and I work with a lot of people in First Nations community, including administrations and staff and the people. And that's kind of how I met ACFN. And and then so I try to use my network of people and bring in people who are doing really well in their life with recovery. And then I asked them if they wouldn't mind being a speaker on this forum and share their story and try to inspire our people and all people with hope that there is a way out, right? And I find a lot of our backwoods, reserves and people who aren't like, close to the urban, they don't often know that there's ways to get sober and there's different paths to try to do this. And a lot of them, they just try to do it on their own. And so, the hope is that at least with ACFN and some of the other streams that we do, and that some of the people that don't know there's a way out, they can find a way or maybe hear an inspirational story from the speakers that we're bringing on once a month. The next event will be November 27th, I believe. I'm just going to check that, and so you guys can put it in your calendars. The 29th. So November 29th will be the next one, and it'll also be from noon till 2 o'clock. Hopefully our live streaming will be ready by then. But who knows? Sometimes technology really messes me up. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to read you the top part of the agenda. So this is the Recovery Mini Summit Indigenous Focus, brought to you by Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation and Billwardlife. The purpose is to help individuals, families, organizations better understand addictions and the spiritual sickness that drives addictions and all self-destructive behavior. My quote is, I want to help as many individuals, families, and organizations as possible to become more empowered and courageous and truthful so that they can help themselves and others in the pursuit of personal and family and social harmony. I want to share my life's journey of imperfection, struggles, and challenges in relationships and within myself to show and inspire others that there is a way. The answers lie within us. We just have to want it bad enough and do what is required. Bill. So this is a 2-hour mini summit. We have three speakers today. Normally I do this from my studio in Calgary, but because I had to come to Edmonton this weekend, I am sitting in an Airbnb. All of the speakers that I chose today are very, very close to me. Um, I dance with two of them, and that is Roberta and Brett. I sundance with those two. And over the last year or maybe 2 years, I've really gotten to know them and I continue to get to know them. And I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to get to know them and call them friends as we move forward. Amanda is a connection that I have through another Sundance family. Her father was one of my teachers and leaders. I danced with her husband, and again, just another gem of a human being who really is a leader in the community of recovery and a leader in our Indigenous paths of the Red Road. So basically, I'll say I know all three of these people from the Red Road, which is a way of recovering mostly through ceremony. I want to share a little bit of a story for just part of my journey. I remember when I was a first year sun dancer and we were dancing up at Blue Quills, and I had asked my teacher if I should sun dance, and he said, "Well, why don't you fast on it first?" And so I fasted on it. Then I got the answer not to dance, but I was supposed to go help. So I remember we were helping, me and a couple other guys, younger guys. We were all talking one day around the back fire, and it was about day three, and a lot of us didn't know each other, but we started to kind of build a bit of camaraderie. And then on the third day, there was a bit of a break, and we all were just talking and laughing and having a really good time there at the back by the sacred fire. And it just came to light. There was about 12 of us back there. Every person that was at the back that day that was in the ceremony as helpers, they all got their start towards culture in a 12-step fellowship. And I just thought that was so amazing to like really find out like these 12 men who are now on the red road path, every one of them got their start in a 12-step fellowship. And so basically why I say that is like, have an open mind, right? Whether you're a ceremonial person and just Indigenous culture and you don't want anything to do with the 12 steps, I'm saying have an open mind. Because a lot of those men in that day, they only follow culture now, and then some of the other men, they do the steps and culture. And so on the other side of that, right, like if you're just a 12 stepper and you don't really think that there's any other way, there's lots of other ways. So I just want you to be open to everybody's story. And Brett here, my brother Brett, his story is different than the regular story that you're gonna hear, right? And so just keep a real open mind and listen for the similarities. And if you know anyone who may be in your family who's struggling or you're struggling, and we open it up to like question period after each speaker, like I implore you to be vulnerable and just ask the questions because for part of our recovery and walking the red road, we want to help you. And we want to share our heart's journeys and our imperfections and all of these things. So don't be afraid to like step out of your comfort zone and ask us anything that you would like. So I'm going to get into introducing the speakers here. So we have three speakers. We have Amanda Campbell, who I know through Lan Campbell, through my one Sundance family, and now I've got a good relationship with her husband and her boys, and it's really turning into something very beautiful. Amanda, she's a proud Nahia Isku woman from Edmonton. She is married to the love of her life, Tyler, who I know, a mother of four, and a recovered alcoholic for 15 years. By having faith in a higher power and walking the red road, I live each day learning to love and help others when the opportunity arises. And she lives and breathes a sober life, and you'll hear that in her story. She's going to speak from 12:10 to 12:40. Roberta will be speaking from 12:50 to 1:20-ish. She is both Woodlands Cree and Dene from Wabasca, Alberta, and Dillon, Saskatchewan. She is 29 years old and a Cree language teacher. Roberta has been sober for 8 years and deeply values the program outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Her native culture is also at the forefront of her recovery. And so another woman who lives and breathes Red Road path walking and like is just like climbing the ladder in the respect of ceremony and being a woman that is valued and that carries a lot of wisdom as such a young person. And Brett, from 1:30-ish to about 1:55, this guy has danced side by side with me for now 2 years. Just an amazing human being. His story is pretty trippy. He spends half his time in India and the other half in Alberta. And just the God shots that this guy's had in the last couple of years is pretty amazing. You'll probably hear some of those. He's a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta and serves as the Deputy Fire Marshal with the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council. Guided by Indigenous spiritual tradition, Brett's path reflects the role that culture, ceremony, and belonging can play in restoring wellness. to help others see how reclaiming culture can serve as a foundation for our resilience, recovery, and strengthened identity. And so I encourage you to stick around right to the end and hear Brett's story. It's a pretty good story. So at the end of the session, when we're all done, you will see Michelle Voyager is on here. She is one of the admins from Acfn who I connect with quite regularly. And I'm going to get her to say a few words at the end. But for now, we'll get on with the gist of our what we're doing here. So Amanda is going to be our first speaker. I chose Amanda as our first speaker because she's well versed in like sharing her story. She'll probably set the tone in a good way, and uh, and I just love that these three members really shot this poster out, and we're really trying to get people from all over the place to join us and listen. And we got a pretty good sized crowd. We got 15. Sometimes we get 25. Sometimes we get 7 or 8. But over the months and months that this has grown, I've really seen it grow. And with the live streaming not happening today, maybe our reach won't get quite as far, but maybe Mike and Tamara figured it out and we're live streaming unbeknownst to me. But regardless, we'll do what we can today, and I appreciate you all being here and kind of dealing with the troubles of technology that I struggle with, and we'll get her going anyway. So Amanda, we're gonna get you up on the plate, and you can start sharing away. And you got about 25 minutes, 30 minutes.
Hello. So my name is Tansei. I'm going to do my intro. My name is Amanda Campbell. I'm a wife and a mom of 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I am Cree from Fort Chip and Saddle Lake, which in from Mackenzie Delta Territory. French on my paternal grandma's side, Scottish and English on my paternal grandfather's side, Scottish from my mom's paternal side, and a little bit of Mohawk from my paternal grandmother. Her grandma was the her grandma's great grandpa was Chief Michelle from Michelle Band. If you're from Alberta around this territory, Michelle Band's just down the road. It was disenfranchised, but they're coming back. I have many roots in central and northern Alberta, NWT, and in the Yukon. My late mother's name is Barbara Firth. She's from Inuvik, NWT. And my father's name is Leonard Campbell. He lives in Vancouver and he's from Fort Smith. My stepmom is Catherine Blackstock. She is Gitsan originally from Gizgat, our Fireweed clan, Killer Whale Crest, and comes from Kispiox village. Right now, I work as an Indigenous wellness coordinator down at the 108 Street building with Recovery Alberta, working with clients that have mental health issues that are pretty serious, and addiction that's pretty serious, that leaves houseless, transient, less family, less friends. And I'm the connection between culture, wellness, and life, I guess. I just want to, this is just something because I see her on here and I always do it. Hi, Keisha. I always do this to her. So I knew her in recovery, and I'm glad she's on here. I want to say hello to Roberta, a very close, longtime friend. And Brett, I have heard of your name through my son. You danced with him. His name's Seth. And another addition to Bill danced with my son as well. So I guess where it began, when I came into recovery, I was addicted to alcohol. That was my main addiction. And I didn't know I had a problem. Maybe I did, and I was in like complete denial, but I was very young. I had my son very young. I was pregnant at 18 and had him at 19. And I started drinking when I was probably had my first drink at 13 years old in Edmonton. I was living with my mom at the time. My mom and dad were divorced, and my dad moved away to Fort McMurray, and my mom kept us. And I say us is my sister me and my sister, and I had my first drink at 13. Oh my God, was I ever scared? I was scared of my mom, what if she would find out, even though she didn't know. I didn't think anything of my dad because he was so far away. I didn't have to be scared. And I didn't think of the consequences. I just thought I was going to be cool with my friends walking down 97th Street with a bunch of native kids. We were just a bunch of native kids that our parents probably didn't even know where we were. Um, and I remember the feeling that came upon me, and it was like just like I think any other alcoholic. The rush came in, the happiness came in, the problems left. I was raised by a single mom for a very long time, and it felt like it was like forever. As a little girl, I didn't know um that wasn't normal to have separate parents that were separated. Fast forward a little bit, I get taken away from CFS because my mom's drinking. So my mom started drinking quite from her story. Uh, she started drinking a lot after she moved to Edmonton. Um, and then a lot after she separated from my dad. So I had to help raise my sister in a townhouse in Abbotsfield. And at school, a social worker came to junior high and interviewed me, and I didn't think anything of it because the Indigenous liaison was with me. And I had a boyfriend at the time. I was just young, like I was 14 now. And next thing you know, I don't remember any of it, but we got taken away from CFS. My brother swooped in and saved us from being into the system, and we had to move with him. We only lived with him for a short time, and in that time, I just got reminded last weekend, uh, I was a little shit. I ran away, I drank, I was drinking with adults, I was drinking with people that I shouldn't have been drinking. I was like out of school, I was trying to drop out, I was trying to make them see me. I want you to see me because you took me away from my mom. I had suicide ideation and attempt. Um, and I don't mean to cry, but maybe I'm just an emotional being. And it kind of resonates with what I'm going with right now because I have a 12-year-old doing similar things. And my mom's 1 year is tomorrow that she passed, and this is why I agreed to do this. Uh, so fast forward a little bit from the badass kid, little shit. I moved with my dad. My dad was really hard. He told me when I tried to pull shit, I will sit in that room with you in that classroom right beside you if you're not gonna go. We were in Sears buying a jacket. I wanted this point zero jacket. And I said, I'm not gonna go to school if you don't buy it for me. And he goes, well then that's okay. He goes, I'll make sure you're in school. I'll drive you to school and I'll sit right beside you. And I'm like, oh my God, that didn't work. I was going into a new school in Fort McMurray now. I moved from Lac-La-Biche. So Edmonton to Lac-La-Biche, Lac-La-Biche to Fort McMurray, into a new high school. Their high school is different. I was alone. I was scared. I had my little sister, but she was younger, she was in elementary. She was going to a new school and it didn't even phase me. I knew she was safe and I knew she was okay because we had my dad now. I tried to bully my dad. And if anyone knows my dad, you don't bully my dad. So my dad's been in recovery for 35 years now. And he's been a huge pillar in our family. And that means my family, my immediate family, my husband and my kids and my home. Um Fast forward a little bit again. I didn't graduate from school. I did go through all the way up until grade 12 and I dropped out. I got pregnant by someone that I thought I fell in love with and had a kid. I followed through with that. Instead of graduating, I had a baby. Moved on. I really wanted to be a social worker. really, really bad because I had a really good school counselor and I really loved like I wanted to do something different because there was just so many changes in my life and I like hardly got to see my mom. It was a blessing that my dad let my mom come up to Fort McMurray so many times. And in that time, like I would go back and forth to Edmonton and I would drink my face off and just hide it, be secret. I don't know if my dad knew or not. He might be on here, but I'm not sure. Uh, and I just like there was lots of secrets and there was lots of things happening behind the scenes because I didn't want my parents to know. And maybe they did, and maybe they had an idea. And I felt that loneliness and drinking helped. So when I turned 18, I got to drink. Then I got pregnant. Then I turned 19. And right after, about a month later, I started drinking. And it was off and on, off and on. I was never really a binge drinker because I never got a chance to be. I had to raise a kid. I had to work. I had to do all these things. But in between, when I had that money, I found a babysitter. I found a babysitter. I had my sister. I had my dad. I had people to watch my kid. There was a way. There was a way. So there were some scary times though when I had to be out on my own because it wasn't going my way. I would leave, I'd go get my own place. It wasn't going my way at my dad's. Um, I'd be like, I can do this then. No, CFS was called. CFS was called on my son, and that scared the shit out of me. And I was like, okay, still didn't sober me up, but I was not scared to call them and be like, no, you can come into my house, you can come into my home. I will miss work for this. It scared me to the point where I didn't want my son taken away because then it all comes, all of a sudden that cycle continues. And that's what I was so scared of. But I resolved that. And that social worker said they seen Crown Royal. This is when I first met my husband. And we had like Crown Royal in the freezer. And it was just a small 2.6 or something on the door. And I said, oh my God, I didn't mean for that to be there. And they're like, it's fine. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, of course it's fine. Your whole house is fine. We're going to close this case. Oh, okay. So now it's ding, it's fine. It's closed. Later on down the road, still drinking. Me and my husband, that's how we met. We drank, we met in a bar. My dad always said, you do not meet your boyfriend in the bar. Well, where am I going to meet him? I met him in the bar. The best place to meet people. Uh, met him the first time, argued with him. Met him the second time down the road, probably a couple months. This is in Fort McMurray. Uh, was like, gave him my number and didn't think he'd call. After that, we started dating and going out, and then the rest is history. Uh, still with him. So when I guess I'll fast forward again. I had another baby. We moved to Edmonton. I went to college, still drinking all these times. And then all these times my dad was phoning. He'd piss me off and be like, oh, well, there's meeting on Friday. Because I grew up in meetings. I grew up in AA rooms. I grew up smoking in them. I grew up in birthdays. I grew up in taking cakes for my dad and bringing them to Fort McMurray downtown. That's where I grew up. And I didn't get why they were all there. I didn't get why they were all laughing. I didn't get why they were being nice to me. I just thought they were nice to me because they were my dad's friends. Another thing is my dad had lots of meetings. He had lots of people come stay at our house and we didn't feel unsafe. Uh, and I didn't realize what he was doing. I didn't realize at all that he was helping others. He was carrying on the message. So later on when I realized I needed that message, and if he didn't say anything, it probably would have took me longer. My last drunk was a blackout at 28. It was in the summer, at a wedding. Very embarrassing, very like almost a tragic ending to my marriage. We weren't married like officially then, but we were together for a very long time. And it was it. It was either make it or break it. Either you're gonna sober up. My husband already sobered up at this time because I was giving him the ultimatum like 6 months before that. And so he did it. at Henwood, and then he sobered up and he was going to meetings, he was going with my dad, everybody, he was having this whole entire life. And I think I got resentful. And I was like, well, I think I got resentful. And then eventually I had to sober up anyway, because I was just making a fool of myself. And my kids needed me. And I didn't want my husband to leave me. So moving forward, I started going to meetings. I went to my first meeting. It was a Sunday night at 60 Minutes to Sobriety. It was a very big meeting back then, huge. And there was about a row full of sober people that I knew and grew up with because my dad was in town. So there was like 3, 4 people on one side, 3, 4 people on the other. And I didn't know I was going to do that. At the end, they said, "Does anyone have a burning desire?" And I put up my hand and people were looking, and my husband's beside me. And I just said, "I think I have a problem with alcohol." And that was the night. And then that night, people took me, my dad and all of his friends and relatives took me to Boston Pizza. It almost bombarded, like, not bombarded, that's not the word, because it didn't feel like an ambush, but it was like, hey, let's go to coffee now and let's just go talk and chat. Let's just go see where you're at in your head. Let's just, and they didn't say that, but that's kind of how it was at BP's. So when did that, and then we went to Drumheller. And what I've learned from the beginning is that you don't have to dwell into your shit. You don't have to like keep feeling sorry for yourself. And then when we got back, my husband went back to work for a very long time. My dad, luckily, I'm lucky to have my dad around quite often. And I mention my dad a lot in my story is because he is the one that's sober. He's the one that's sober in our whole entire clan, if you want to say. And there's so many of us that are sober because we've seen the growth in the person that didn't have to be. You know, if he was here, he would tell his own story, and there's much more to that, much more substance. But I am very lucky to have a dad that comes over the mountains every now and then, more often now, to visit me and my sister, to be there for me and my sister, to pick up the phone. And I'll touch on my mom. My mom, even though she drank, we've made amends when I got into my, like, in this time. It took a couple years for her to understand why I was sobering up and why I wouldn't drink with her anymore and why I had to do this. So we made amends and we never fought again after my being sober anymore, because she held a lot of resentment towards my dad. And I just had to remind her I'm not my dad and I'm your daughter, and we need to move forward. And that took a couple years in, and that was a lot of healing that me and her did up until then, up until now. And we just knew how to talk to each other and have respect in that matter. Fast forward a little bit, I had 2 children in sobriety. So when I came into recovery, I only had two. They were my higher power because I didn't really know what a higher power was. I didn't go to church. I didn't go to ceremony. And I used my boys because I adored my boys. I was so prideful to be the best mom I could be. And in that first year, that's who I used. That's how I stayed sober. And I went to meetings, like tons of meetings. That's all I did. And I brought them along with me. Then I got a job and I had to make sure they knew that those were a priority. Those meetings were a priority. And in the first year, like, my dad was very ceremonial. And he took us, me and my husband, to this sweat the first year, and it was with Dave Le Swiss outside north of Edmonton here, west of Morinville. And we went to a beautiful New Year's Eve sweat. And that's when I opened my eyes. I need ceremony. And that's kind of where it led me to where how to believe in a creator and where to believe and how to walk on this red road. After that, we went to our first roundup at North Shore in Vancouver, had the most greatest time. And then after that, it just kind of rolled. Started working with people in the program. I didn't really mention the program in my bio because it's attraction. I mean attraction rather than promotion. And I really like to live our traditions and our principles in our program. So this is an Indigenous forum, and I have a mix, like Bill says. So when we now me and Tyler are walking together. We're walking together, we're working out, we're doing all the fun, positive things. He's going to Sundance, he's gonna dance, or we're both helping, sorry. Then our first Sundance came, and this is in High Prairie. And we helped. I think that first Sundance was the whole day because just me and him went. We camped out there and he helped on the fire and I helped in the kitchen. And it was just a fog because you're just up at 5 and you're sleeping at 12 and you're up at 5 and you're sleeping at 12. Like it was chaotic, but it was the most blessed time that we've ever spent. And that too. So all these little things that stepped up solidified us into the ceremonies. So we continued on our path, and that was my first year. Got a job, raised my kids healthier, got active, went to ceremony, and tons of meetings, and met so many people to help me throughout all of that. The one thing that I was missing in all that was that I didn't work my steps. I was too distrustful. I left it on the back burner, but I stayed sober by the like I always lose words, but I still stayed sober because of all the support and I kept showing up, but I kept showing up even years after. Did my steps, found a person that put me in my place because I was wanting to drink a few years later. And that was because of tragedy. Shit happened. And that was after my babies. I called them my sober babies. Because I wished them, I willed them in a way. Creator blessed me with two little girls back to back. I kept saying it. And um So where was I going with that? Sorry, I have ADHD. I just found out. Uh Roberta's laughing at me. And I was like, oh my God. I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at you. So I'm trying to squeeze like the last 10 years in this time. I'm so glad you guys are all native. Or almost allies. I see Blaine out of here if that's the Blaine. Okay, breathe. So did all those. Kind of fast forward a bit. I got a sponsor. She kicked my ass. She put me in my place. I did my steps and I moved on. I carried on. When I came back, my dad said, let's just go to Gem Heller. We're gonna, we got to keep moving on when I first sobered up because I couldn't dwell. Well, this sponsor did that too. So I started coming back. I started doing things in the community again. I started like really lighting that fire again in recovery. And then something happened again. But you know what saved me through all these things, like ebbs and flows and the waves, and then riding the wave, is the people in the program, the people in ceremony, and like my higher power. Because if my higher power didn't bring me back to Sundance, didn't bring me back to the rooms, because self was in the way, and hearing the drums and hearing the singing and seeing the people sacrifice, I would be drinking. If I didn't hear the stories, if I didn't go down those stairs, I would be drinking. If I didn't have friends that pulled me out of myself, I would be drinking. And a lot of tragedies did happen. And I'm talking about death. So the latest death that I did have was my mom. And I already knew because I believed that there is a higher power and there is a creator that helps me and sends her on her journey. And the past year, I have been in grief. I am excited to put up her pictures tomorrow. I am excited. I cut my hair for her to honor her spirit. I've done many things in the past 15 years that I probably wouldn't have known if I didn't allow myself to sober up. I've learned so many of our cultural teachings. And another thing that I wanted to say was Dringwinzi. And that is Gwich'in for like, hi, how are you? I want to honor my mom in so many ways with the Gwich'in beliefs and traditions and cultural teachings because she didn't know much because she was in residential school. That was another thing is my parents were in residential school and I didn't even know until 2006. 2007, and didn't really talk about it even then until recently. And I feel like ceremony has helped immensely heal our family, not just my immediate family here in this household, but um, with my dad, with my mom, with talking to us, letting us know how they grew up, what their cultural teachings were. I didn't know my mom knew how to smoke fish, I knew she knew how to dry meat. I didn't know how she could dry fish. I didn't know she knew how to snare. I didn't know how she knew how she like lived off the land. You know, the nurses were saying a couple years ago, oh, like she was on the land. I was like, yeah, man, like it's not mean like she's poor or in poverty. She just lived off the land. That was her life. That was her way of being at the time. She wasn't poor. She wasn't like malnourished or anything. That was just her way of life. And a lot of Munyao don't know in this in the medical field, I want to say, know what the lingo is, like the talk. So that's another thing. When I work in the medical field, I'm the bridge, like a I feel the bridge, or I'm a bridge builder between the language, how we talk, how we have humor, what our words are, our stories, how we tell them. Why would they do this instead of that? Why are they taking so long? Oh my God, why don't they heal? Like, I'm not saying they say it like that, but there are questionable things that are said. So I'm that person. Um, I try to leave at the door, but I it's in me, and I have to share the message when I can and carry this the best way I can. I have so many people, and I see so many people on this Zoom meeting right now that are supporters and that are, we all walk together this way. And this past year, I got to go to the convention, the convention, the convention, and in Vancouver, and what a blessing! I got to go with Roberta and her sisters and my dad and Blaine. And so many people from Edmonton went. There was an Indigenous room there. So if you're ever in the program and you want to go in like 5 years, there's a next one going to be, oh, I can't even think off the top of my head. There's like so many thoughts. But there's always we always have representation, and we need representation, and we need you to be sober with us. So if you're new or coming back, reach out, go to a meeting, do what you need to do, and not do what you need to do what you need to do to be safe, healthy, and live a good life. Be healthy, be like light. It's such a good way of being. I think that's it. I'm at 12:37. I feel like I rushed so much, but I'm good.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, it's hard to squeeze in our stories in a half an hour, right? An hour is pretty good, but we try to do our best with what we got here, and you did a great job, and thank you for that. Um, just to kind of chat off the coattails of what you said, and I didn't hear you say exactly this, but settling for just not drinking is it's settling, right? There's so much more to recovery than not drinking, right? And once we kind of tap into like the other aspects of like what recovery is, we can actually live, right? And and navigate life in like a really good and healthy and happy way. And I think that's what I've seen in you, and I know definitely your dad brings that energy to everywhere he goes, and so do you, and so does Tyler, right? And so just for the people who might think that, my problem's drinking, you know, that might be the first step of the problem, but really it's living. And by stopping drinking and then working into recovery, we can really live. And that's important because life becomes a lot different and a lot better. And Brett and I were talking about that earlier, how he feels reborn, right? And I felt reborn in my recovery as well. Um, so while you guys on the screen prep a question or a comment for Amanda, I want to ask her a couple things, and then I'll open the floor to the gallery here. But when you were working through like your journey of recovery, do you have like advice on like what the hardest parts were and how you got through those? Like what were some of the most challenging parts of like working through your recovery? Maybe it was through your steps or maybe life circumstances. You'd mentioned death. Like how, and a lot of our people experience death. Like how do you get through these things?
Mm. So at first I didn't like I should have known what I should do. Like that was a red flag there because I was a recovering alcoholic going through these things. And then the best way that I did it was go back to a meeting, mention it, and then I kind of the ball got rolling. I also did a lot of yoga and like trying to calm my like self-regulate and also I just talked to people. I picked up the phone and I used those numbers that I had that I haven't called just because I was a mom or I was a stay-at-home mom or I had other things to do. I really had to save myself and that's what saved me was calling people.
And that's one of the hardest things for anybody to do. And that's one of the first things we learn in recovery, is to like try
Yeah.
to pick up the phone and try to talk it out. And what I've learned through my journey is the more that I talk about whatever it is, the more that I make space for some of the other stuff to come out, right? And if we don't talk about things, the energy of the negativity maybe behind it, it just gets stuffed and it makes it worse. And that kind of drives us drinking, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So kind of looking at your life before recovery and then looking at your life in recovery, are you able to like describe maybe how like your communication used to be to like how it is today?
You don't want to know. Just kidding. If I'm honest, I'm not the same person. Uh I was very closed off. Like I was kind of rude, kind of mean, very like kind of mouthy. And lots of people that know me now are like, "What?" Like, no, not you. No, I kind of was because it's like you're self-preservating for something that you think someone's gonna stab you in the back. But really it's yourself that like that stinking, that drinking thinking. And I didn't know I had it until I started working through everything and then looking back like, whoa, 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 girl, like it was messed up. Like it was messed up. Like if I'm being honest, I was a little bit like don't get me wrong, I was nice to my relatives and I had to put on the show. I had to be that actor, but I was kind of mean sometimes, especially drinking. Holy man, think of a big shot.
Right? And
Yeah.
and just the fact that you said like you're a totally different person, like for me, I used to be very angry and violent, also similar traits to what you just described. And like, now I really like who I am. Like I'm
Yeah.
kind and I'm nice and like I can have these vulnerable conversations, like maybe speak to the vulnerability that is, able to be accessed through like recovery and how you like speak now. What is it like now when you
I'll say that one
encounter
more
like,
time. Sorry. I don't know why I can
like
hardly
when
hear.
you maybe when you encounter like a tough conversation that maybe in the past you would avoid and you would just stuff or you'd build resentment or anger over, like
Mhm.
how do you navigate that now with maybe your partner, your kids, or a friend?
Oh, partner and kids, like we're totally, it says in the book, I have it beside me. So we can practice this book with our families, friends, or like your spouse or whatever, if they're willing. Can't push it on them. But I'm about open communication. We also have I guess asking seeing where they're at, not like poking and prodding and like forcing Tyler to be like, I want to know what's going on. No, 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 no. We can't do that. Like we have a process. It's like, hey, I feel like there's something that like I can hear the tone. So I catch it on with my family, especially, but even with my dad or my sister, it's like, I think there's something going on here. Don't get me wrong, in the beginning, they were all blow-ups. There are way less blow-ups now. Like, because I thought we could like We could just fix it because I'm sober now. I'm sober now. Can't you see I'm sober? Like, didn't I tell you? And they know, but they don't. They're, I feel like they were supposed to know me, but now it's like it was more blowups and arguments, and now it's like it's so easy. I just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, is there something going on?" Or vice versa. I always tell people, "Mi casa, su casa." If there's something that you see that I'm doing wrong that's offending you, or if there's some anything, just call me. And I've had friends do that in the program.
Okay, awesome. So, Roberta, you can bring that up if you'd like. But if anyone would like to make any comments or ask questions to Amanda, the floor is open. Go ahead, Roberta.
If
I'm
that
saying, hey sis, I just wanted to ask a question, even though I was there. I think it's so beautiful and I love you so much and I love your story and your strength. But I was wondering if you wanted to tell us about the ceremony you did for your late mom when you had cut your hair for her.
Oh, okay. Um, so the hair cutting ceremony, uh, I at first, like, because I was on so much grief, I didn't know I was gonna do this. So it took about maybe a week, 5 to 7 days to maybe 5 days to realize sitting there, I'm gonna cut my hair. And I seen you do it. Like I wasn't there, like physically, but I knew something was going on, and then I heard about it after, and then I seen you. But Um, what triggered it was just it came to me. It came into my mind while I was sitting on the couch thinking of it. It just came to me. And then I just started making calls. I called you, I called another lady in recovery and ceremony, and then we were kind of discussing some things. And then I called Carol, and then she brought Donna, and then I called a few of my main close friends. We had a pipe. We had it in my house. My boys had a fire going in the back because they're fire keepers. And my nephew was there, which is good because he's on the streets right now. He's not doing well, but he managed to be around that time, and I asked him to be a fire keeper for me. Um, and my sister was there. So it all came together, and we had a circle in my we had a blanket, then we had a circle, and there was maybe like 10 people, and then the two main women that did it. So Roberta cut my they like braided my hair, and then they took it and they cut it. They braided it. She braided it. They cut it, Donna and her. And then we had that fire going on outside. I wrapped it in some like print, put it out in the oh my god, the fire, and uh they got sent off. So it was right after my mom's burial, or when we had her service. So it's like saying goodbye for now. Hair holds memory. And that's why it felt like the right thing to do as well. And then I don't know, it's very healing. It's very healing. It's very it was weird at first, but I just went with it. And then when I went with it, I could realize throughout the year why I did it. And it let me, my mom would have laughed because my mom made me grow out my hair since I was a little girl. And now I kind of feel like I look like her in some ways when I look at myself. So I was healing in that too. Like I don't know everything about it, but it was a very like powerful ceremony. And my lovely sister Roberta sang. She always sings for me at my ceremonies whenever I do them because I got my name this year too. So yeah, it was a very good year, regardless of the huge loss I had. Is that what you want to hear?
Amazing. Just something that you said, it was weird at first, but I just went with it. There's so
Yeah.
many things in recovery that are weird at first that if we're open-minded enough and we go with it, they produce the results kind of like you're speaking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen when I sobered up. But look at me now.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Amanda?
Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really beautiful to hear. Now that you've been in recovery for a while, I'm just wondering if you can talk about like, do you still feel pulled in that way? Does alcohol still come to mind at all for you? Like, is your recovery ongoing and the process and the work that you need to do ongoing, or do you find a peace with it? Where are you at with that?
That's cool. Thank you. Um, I guess throughout the 15 years, I have had like maybe a little urge to drink, but not in the way that like I would go to the OC and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go party. And if nobody knows what the OC is, it's the oil can for memory or diggers, like all those places got me drunk. Um, say now here, like there was just a few places when I before I sobered up because we were in Edmonton that yeah, it got us drunk, but it wasn't the same. I don't know how to explain it. The urge was only at that tragedy that I said. We had my first death. That was my sister-in-law. She OD'd. And it hit our home really, really, really hard. And I wasn't doing anything. But now I know what to do. Even if it's like a fleeting thought. I pick up that phone or I leave my house. My kids know where I'm going. My kids know where I'm going all the time. If I'm leaving at 7:30 or even 10 to 8, they know I'm going to a meeting. If they know if I need just to go see a friend in the program and I say someone's name, like Keisha, they know where I'm going. They just know. So if any of that comes up, which it doesn't really come up because I work this program every single day, but if I don't, it comes up. But if I work this, which I do, like I said, we have these all over this house. Like people like might not know that, but we do. And it's either cracking the book, having literature, or just being somewhere. You have to be with the people like you. You have to. Getting into a sweat. You have to do it. Like I've been thinking of a sweat for 2 weeks now since I came back from Japan, and I haven't been there yet. I can't. Right now, this weekend I can't. But hopefully next week I can. Yeah. So I hope that answered that question. It's a daily process. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, hi, it's Lane here.
I knew it was you. How come I can't hear him? He's muted.
Yeah, I said congratulations on your honesty. I was sitting here thinking, so I've known Amanda for 28 years, and I met her father 28 years ago in Fort McMurray, and and remember that smile. The smile has always been there from as long as I can. When I think of Amanda, I always think of the smile. And there's and I often when I'm thinking about my Len's story, there's a part in his story, and I've heard it. I don't know how many. You know what I mean? I've been with him a long time. Uh, where he sees Amanda in the field just before he stopped, and for years I would get this big lump in my throat because I could feel that. He always shared right from the heart, right from the heart, and we were. She was in Japan a couple of weeks ago, and I sent her a little message, and it kind of I said, you guys are a long ways from Beaver Hill Park.
Yeah.
And because that was a place where her dad used to hang out a bit, and if you know his story, Beaver Hill Park comes up in the story. And I can't drive if I'm in Edmonton. I live back east now, but if I'm in Edmonton and I drive down Jasper, I went and taken pictures in that park and sent it to him, because it's like his story is part of my story. It's all connected, If he didn't go through that, I wouldn't be sitting here. And I see how we're all connected, in recovery. That this isn't a chance thing, that and watching for, like I said, I probably she was 14 years old, I think, when I met her, and all the life that's happened since, how she stood up, and I'm really proud of Amanda, really proud of her, and And I know she's got a posse now, and they help each other, it's just great to see. It's great to see. So, anyways, thanks, and it's a pleasure being on here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Blaine.
Amazing. Thank you, Blaine.
Ah.
Okay, Amanda, thank you so much for your time and sharing your part of your journey and
So
go ahead.
Bill, Michelle said, it's my cousin. Should I answer it later
Go ahead.
on chat?
Go ahead.
Okay. Michelle, where's your pretty face? Okay. Um, I, I guess with the being in places, I had to be in those places because I still have best friends that aren't in recovery and they're not alcoholics, but they do drink. They do party, they have celebrations. Me and Tyler have many people that still drink. Um, I think in the beginning we had to time it out to see how long we can be there. And also, they need to know that we don't drink and do not push it on us. So, lots of those people that we still associate with, they're very respectful. They don't bring it up anymore, but they just be themselves. And then we're ourselves too, just because we still love them and we still want to hang out. But sometimes we have time limits that we don't want to that we can't be there that long. So I hope that answers the question. I love you.
And maybe I'll add, I'm just gonna refer to the big book because it's got so much good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about like, you know, it talks about shielding ourselves from alcohol is there's no peace in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, at least we're not making it worse, but the freedom comes when you're able to be in all these situations and be around alcohol, be around places that serve it and go to bars and, with good reason, not just to hang around, but it talks about the person who like is shield himself that can't go to these places still has an alcoholic mind. And the goal is to like really dig deep and root up the things that inside of us that make us want to drink. And so my advice is like really find people that have done it like Amanda and ask her what she did and then do what she did and then free yourself from the bondage of like not being able to do these things that you want to do and like the fear of going back to places or doing these things and there's still an attachment there of like that power of pull from like the addictive side of us, but there is
Well,
a
that's
way to
how I feel. I'm gonna go back home. Like, I am eventually gonna go home, but I'm in Edmonton now. I don't hang out with anybody that drinks. I don't go anywhere where alcohol is. So I really struggle with that. The thought to go back home, the thought to be around people consuming under the influence, and I just think, well, if I'm sober, maybe, it could shed some light and give them hope kind of thing. But I still struggle with it. 4 years, and I was thinking that, am I going to be feeling the same way in 10 years? Like, I don't want to carry that, So, would you recommend that I kind of put myself out in places where I would be around that? I'm
No, no,
confused
no,
with
no.
it.
You need to come to more meetings with me.
Yeah, I've never been to a meeting. So, and actually, I was just saying that, like, you would be a really good person for me to be around because, your story, we come from the same family. So, I still have a lot of family and addictions, and it's anything that I could learn and, hopefully help somebody else out. That's what I would just
Yes.
hope to do.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks for yeah, we need to hang out.
Yes.
That's a good first
We'll
step.
be in contact.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, without further ado, Miss Roberta A.
Roberta.
Yeah, one of my Sundance family sisters, just kicking butt out there in career and, helping people in every way she can, and just a shining light in our world today. And from what you'll hear, it wasn't always like that. So, Roberta, take it away.
Hello, aho natutamak yata miskatinawal kakiao. Hello, my friends. I shake hands with all of you. Roberta ni nitigasin maga miko pasquamus du satrasquio nuihoin. My given name's Roberta, but my spirit name is Red Buffalo Spirit Woman. Egua nehiao, sagao nehiao squeo egua denesum cline. I'm both Woodlands Cree and Dene. Yeah, I'm currently 29 years old, but I've been sober for 8 years now. And yeah, life has really, really changed for me. I just wanted to bring up something though, because Amanda's my sponsor, and um so right now, like, I'm a Cree language teacher, and personally, like, I'm also an addict and alcoholic. And I work every day, and from time to time, just to keep that at bay. And not only that, like, it's more than that, like my thinking and my solutions, and sometimes I still need help. And now I'm in a profession where I'm held to really high standards. Like, I'm a teacher, and it's not only at school that I'm held to a certain standard of professionalism, but also like in my outside life. And it is part of our traditions not to promote Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's like on my mind a little bit. But on our poster for this event, I was like, I really value the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I guess I felt kind of bad doing that after Amanda did mention that. Um, because it's for the newcomer, right? No one person can represent, the program of alcoholics all by themselves. And I want newcomers to know that there's so many different people who are, in AA. But I was personally saying that because I I guess, I'm like stuck in this profession, and I go to work, and I don't feel like a lot of people realize the life that I'm coming from. And it just it just crossed my mind though when she said that. So, but honestly, yes, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has really worked for me. And not only that, but ceremony and culture has been really pivotal in my sobriety. Right from my first year coming in to recovery and being sober was the first time that I ever interacted with Sweat Lodge and even the Big Lodge, which is Sundance. And if it wasn't for that, I have no idea where my life would have went. And like, especially now, sometimes I kick myself, like, I'm like, oh my God, these people gave me a classroom. I have 167 students from grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm all of a sudden I'm a Cree language teacher. Like, I never grew up speaking my language. I was in university, all these like great things, right? And I would have never thought that my life would have turned out the way that it has. And it's all thanks to, the program as outlined, and not only in AA, but I also accessed, well-briety programs, and also going to ceremony, and trying to connect um with creator, my higher power, and connecting with our helpers that are in the lodges. When I say helpers, I don't mean like, us as humans, because they say when you go in lodge, right, there's certain things that we can't do for ourselves, and that's why we have lodges for that purpose. Um, but anyway, um, I think I'm going till 120, right, Bill? 120 or 130?
Yeah, 120, 125, somewhere in there.
Okay. So what it was like, My first growing up, I was raised by a single mom. My late mom, her name is Joyce Monkran. She's Dene from Dillon, Saskatchewan, and I was raised with her. My mom was the black sheep of the family, so to speak. Um, Before she had children, she had many miscarriages, and there was a lot of dysfunction in her life when she was a young kid. I'll say that. She was in residential school. She suffered a lot of um, abuse, not only in residential school, but at home too, because of the effects of, residential schools and everything that goes with being Native. My mom was, had a really, really hard life. And she became an addict right away. She told me her story when I was a little kid. Um, became an addict right away. Started off smoking cigarettes. Um, she was a full-blown addict within her early 20s, but before that, she was a full-blown alcoholic at the age of 16, I believe. And she ran away from her home community, Dillon, Saskatchewan, to here in Edmonton. And her older sisters were out here. She was the baby of the family, so they were out here. She ran away from home and became a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict later. My mom was known for being very violent. She would fight men, and she had many charges for that, for fighting, men and being in bars and stuff like that. And she was told by the doctors that she could not have children. So she had, I think it was 2 or 3 miscarriages before she finally had a successful pregnancy with my older sister, Amy. My sister was born, my mom was about 31 or 32 at that time. And my mom was still a full-blown addict, so my sister was raised in a home like that. And then like my mom, I don't think she had a program. I don't think she had any idea about sobriety or, wanted sobriety. I think she had children, finally had children, and was struggling to try and figure out life all of a sudden with kids in it, right? And why I talk about her story because it's more than to do with just me. Um, my mom, it took her a long time to finally sober up. My older sister seen way more than I did because she's 4 years older than me. And between her and I, there was also another miscarriage, I believe. And in that time, my mom never sobered up. When she finally did have me with my late dad, so my late dad was also fathered my older sister, and he fathered me 4 years later with my mom. And during my mom's pregnancy is when my father had cheated on my mom, and he's known for that. He has 4 baby mamas. Very like promiscuous guy, could never um be a consistent father, and he too was also in residential school and possibly struggled with alcoholism. He had diabetes and he died very, very young at the age of 49. Um So during that pregnancy, that happened between my parents, and by the time I was born, my mom went straight back to her addiction, and I was severely, severely neglected. Within a couple of months of me being born, my father had abandoned me, and my mom had also abandoned me, trying to deal with life through her drug addiction. And she got pregnant again a couple of months right after I was born, and not long after my little brother Byron was born. So I'm doing trauma therapy right now and trying to understand um, what had happened to me and why I am the way I am, I guess. And because I still struggle, right? And so that happened, and when my little brother was born, I think my mom took it a little bit more serious, but it took her a long time to finally sober up. She was dealing with Byron, my little brother. He was a brand new baby boy, and my older sister was like 6 years old or so at that time, and I was kind of the middle child and really neglected. My brother's father, he was severely abusive, um, very, very violent man. And so again, I was still neglected. And my mom and my stepdad, they would drink together, they would use drugs together, and they would fight constantly. And there was many times that we were apprehended as children. We were all living here in Edmonton at that time. And yeah, my early years, the only things that I can remember, they're not good memories. I remember like seeing my mom being beaten. I remember just so much trauma and lots of violence. Um, like I probably won't share it all here, but like that's why I'm in therapy now, finally talking about it. And finally, my mom went into rehab. We were apprehended yet again. My mom was fighting with the police. I remember I seen it go down, and I was about 6 years old at that time, and we were apprehended that night. My mom went into Poundmaker's treatment center, and after that, when we finally got to go back into her care, she took us straight back home to Dillon, Saskatchewan, where we lived for about 6 months. And I think it really scared my mom. I don't know what happened for her to uh take us back home. My mom didn't really want to go back home ever because of, what had happened to her when she was a child. And but we went back home and my mom continued to drink. And one night she was dancing on a coffee table and she was drunk and we were spinning her around. We were just kids like, yeah, dance, mommy, dance, just dance. And like we didn't understand, right? And then she pulled out a map of Saskatchewan and she laid it on the table. And she said, spin me, my kids, wherever my finger lands, that's where we're gonna go next. And we spun her and when she opened her eyes, her finger landed on Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. So we moved to Prince Albert. And if anybody here knows Prince Albert, it is a shithole. I'll say that. It's so bad. It's really like not the place. In my opinion, people live there obviously, but it's not the place to, raise your kids and find a life. Maybe you can, but I could not, and I know a lot of people couldn't do it there. And but we ended up going there. We stayed in a women's shelter, and my mom hated PA. She didn't like it. She was used to a big city like Edmonton, and she hated it. She didn't want to be there. But uh the social workers from the women's shelter got us a house, and so we moved into that house, and right behind the house was a huge Bible college as well. In that Bible college, there was a church and there was a school for children to learn in like a private school setting. They'll do like their education alongside Christian learning. So my mom started going to church right away and she completely changed. And literally that house that we were moved into had a white picket fence. So we were coming from a really dark, violent, traumatic upbringing into this home with a white picket fence. And there was no period of transition in there, and it was a really hard transition. My mom suddenly was alive for Jesus, and she loves Jesus right to her dying breath. But I don't know, something must have changed for her. Like people find things that work for them, and for her it was the church and the Bible that worked for her. And later on in life, when I started accessing ceremony, she started to be more accepting of ceremony, and she would actually come with me to the lodges and see me go into Sundance. So that was nice. But at that time, she would go to church, and she took the Bible college program there, and uh yeah, she became a minister so she can bury people and marry people. And she got really well known by the different pastors in Prince Albert and all across First Nations people in Saskatchewan. And she would go around in a jamboree style and or like a I forget what they call it. They go to different communities and they have a huge tent set up, and my mom was a speaker and she'll speak Dene Sunklene to the people and pray and stuff like that. And every night since then my mom would sit with us and we'll say Our Father. And yeah, that then from that time my mom would take us to church, and I was put into the private school system from like grade 2 or 1, and I stayed in the private school system till grade 8. Sorry, yeah, till grade 8, about there. And yeah, and that time I don't really like, nothing really bad happened. My mom was in church, and during that time, like, I also fell in love with this idea of God, and I always remember that. And my mom was so happy. We had a sober home, so on and so on. And I grew up. I was 13 years old, and my mom started having problems with my older sister Amy. Amy was raised for a longer period of time in a very traumatic household, and my older sister started to retaliate. So she's retaliating, and just all this, my mom didn't know how to handle it, and we were apprehended again. And I remember laying in bed fantasizing about my mom coming to rescue me, and I felt so alone. And finally, we did get back into my mom's care. She could prove that she is a good guardian, and then she became a foster parent herself for children in northern communities. And that's just a long story short. By the time it came my turn to start using, nothing had been dealt with. My upbringing hadn't been talked about. My mom ended up leaving that church, and there's a lot of traumatic things that happened in that church, and I was bullied. I was the brownest kid there. I was bullied there, like all this stuff. And my mom left that church, and that's the only life that I knew. And I was put into public school system, and I could not relate to anybody around me. And I buried myself in books for like that whole year in grade 8 public school. And I would do my work, and I was so lonely. And I had like no friends. I had one good friend, but she later on told me when we got into high school that she didn't want to be my friend because I was too shy. And so she went off and had her other friends. And me, I was just alone. And then my dad died. And I never knew this man. And we buried him and went back home. And just nothing was being dealt with. And they call that circumstances, right? Those were my circumstances. And I remember the very first time that I smoked pot. I was hanging out with my little brother and his friends because I had no friends. And his friends were already smoking pot. And I went with Byron, we stole $20 from my mom's wallet, and I said I want to try it. And we went and we found some pot, and I smoked it, and I was so like in the big book. It's a euphoric feeling that I had. Suddenly I was in control of my life. I was in control. I felt euphoric. I felt so happy that all I needed to do was find this thing and take it, and everything was gonna be like this, like so everything's so fine. Like it's an ease and comfort. And then it not like literally a week later, that's when I started drinking alcohol for the first time, and I was 14 years old. And for me it was like there was no easing into alcoholism. It was right away for me. Like I was smoking pot, and then I was drinking, and then I was drinking every day. And before that, being raised in a private school into public school, all the teachers knew me as a responsible kid, and I was an honors student with distinction. And suddenly I was drinking, smoking pot, and I dropped out that second semester of grade 9 after being honors with distinction, and I was drinking every day just because of how much ease and comfort I was getting from alcohol. And I kept up that way, and I ran away from home. I was a missing kid for about a week, and I just kept going, kept going, kept going. I overdosed by the time I was 16 years old, and it wasn't a big deal to me. I didn't understand the severity of it. And in that overdose, I just remember waking up in the hospital, and I was like, wow, whatever they gave me just took away my hangover completely, and I'm ready to drink again. And I did. And I went drinking again. And uh in that time my mom was having a really difficult time with me and my sister Amy, and we were running away, we weren't in school, just being little shits like Amanda said, being total shits. And I didn't care, man. I just wanted to drink and I liked it, and I would go and party and let loose and just drink till I blacked out, and I would binge. And I was only 16 years old, 17, 18. And by the time I was 18 years old, I was like a full-blown alcoholic. And I had to go to the doctor because my mom was fed up with me. My mom stayed, somewhat sober. She did go back drinking, but not the same that we were kids. She did go back drinking, but not severely. And she brought me to the doctor because I was having difficulties and having suicidal ideation, and I was like harming myself and all this and that. Went to the doctor and they told me I had a major depressive disorder, and I that was my ammo to just stay the way I was. I don't know why. I just stayed the way I was. And I was like, woe is me, right? And then from there was the first time that I started using hard drugs. And I remember that feeling very clearly, what it was like when I used hard drugs for the very first time. It was like that euphoric feeling times 10, times 20, times 100, that very first time. And my depression didn't matter in that first using, and suddenly everything made sense, and all I needed was this drug. And I would secretly use it uh for the first 2 weeks secretly and only on the weekends. And then suddenly within those first 2 weeks of me using that drug, my mom went up to work in the north. She was heavy equipment operator, and she left for 2 weeks. And ever since she left, that's when I just full blown every single day I was using drugs. I caught charges. I seen a lot of violence. I think people who have used drugs and were in that world understand what's in that world. And I got used to the lifestyle of it. And yeah, I just by the end of it, I had no dignity left for myself. I had no respect for myself. I didn't care what happened to me. And I would use to oblivion. I would stay up for days. And I was so like empty, really, really empty inside. And I didn't even want to think about how empty I was. And then unless I was detoxing or withdrawing. And that's what happened. I ended up here in Edmonton, like from Prince Albert in Edmonton, and uh ended up here, and I was detoxing. I had no drugs anymore or anything, not even cigarettes, not even a cell phone. And I was really roughing it. And I always share this story because it was the moment that I did like a step one. I ended up at the library downtown, and they told me that I couldn't get on a computer because they're all being used. I need to wait. So I went and sat down in the library downtown, and I was looking out the window that was in front of me, and I was watching these people walking by, just ordinary people. And they were like, some of them had like, they were walking their kids, I remember, and they had on winter coats because it was snowing. Some people had like a coffee in hand and a briefcase, and they just looked like they're going to work, or they looked like they had a home, and everything's so ordinary for them. Everything's so normal. Everything's okay. And I'll still cry when I think about it because like I was so down and out, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't have that, and what was wrong with me. And I had a piece of paper with me, and I wrote on that piece of paper, and I was begging God to please help me. And literally he did. I got on the computer and I contacted my older sister Cherish. She was living here in Edmonton, and she said that she agreed to come and pick me up while I waited for my mom to come from Prince Albert to pick me up in 1 week. So she said I could stay with her for 1 week till my mom got here. When she picked me up, she brought me to her home. The very next day, She didn't tell anybody, she didn't tell me, and I didn't know what Alcoholics Anonymous was, but she brought me to my very first AA meeting. And at that time, she had 4 years sobriety. I didn't know that. She brought me to my very first meeting, and I had to sit right at the front. She left me there, and I was listening to these elders share their story. And then after the meeting was done, we all got in a big circle and we said, Our Father. And when we were saying Our Father, I was like had tears in my eyes. And there was like hundreds of people there. It was a roundup meeting. I didn't know that at the time. There was like 100 people there all standing in a circle and we are saying Our Father and we all get it, right? And I felt like I was coming home because my mom, when we were kids, she used to sit with us in a circle just like that and we'll say Our Father. And I felt like God just heard my prayer for help. And I didn't even know what AA was. And after that, it took me a while, but I ended up in the rooms. I moved back here to Edmonton. I ended up going to meetings, and I didn't know anybody that used here. I recommend that. Change who you hang out with. Don't hang out with your old friends, especially in your first year. And I ended up going to ceremony through people that I met in the rooms of AA. One thing led to another. I went to the big lodge that I sundanced there for my late mom when she got cancer. My mom did sober up completely in the end. And I got into university. I held a job for 7 years, just a part-time job doing university. And during that time, I'm now going to graduate in the next 3 weeks here, like walk the stage. I did finish school, but I'm going to walk the stage in 3 weeks with an honors of distinction for 2 degrees. And my mom, she passed away 3 years ago, and I got to my mom knew that I'm okay. That's the greatest gift I could give to my mom. She knew I was okay and I'm doing okay in life. And I told her I'll take care of her grandkid that is still in my care for 3 years now. He's 16 years old. His name is Austin, and I take care of him. And that's my older sister's oldest. And my sister's in sobriety now. And I got to hold my mom when she was passing away, and I got to be the last person that talked to her and the last person to pray with her. And it didn't break me because at that time I was already in this program and I had a huge net around me of people in recovery. And it wasn't even an option to drink and use. I already knew what that life is. I already knew where it was gonna bring me. Sure, it might bring a euphoric feeling for like once, but I already knew if I played a tape to the end, what's gonna happen to me, and I honestly didn't want that. So I got honest in the rooms. I said, I miss my mom. I'm hurting. I'll go to ceremony and I'll just be honest, right? Honesty. They say that we're insane as alcoholics. We lie to ourselves, we're delusional. But if you think of sanity, it's the truth. So as long as I'm being honest and I'm dealing with life on life's terms in these rooms, so on and so on, I'm gonna be okay. And I do the big book now, like finish my degree, I'm a teacher now. But besides all that, I love this big book. I'm crazy, organized, OCD. But I ordered this like cover for my big book. Here's my coin from the convention of AA over the summertime. I'm gonna go to the convention every year. And because there's like 60,000 drunks and we bombarded Vancouver. The city of Vancouver is so awesome. And I tabbed up my big book and I'm taking newcomers through the big book and I have 3 sponsees and that keeps me sober. They say it in the big book over and over and over and over and over time, right from the preface all the way through. Alcoholics need to talk to alcoholics. That's how it works, and that's how you stay sober permanently. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome, Roberta. Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, hearing your story and how, the family intergenerational trauma affected you and, the alcoholism within your family and the abandonment from, your parents and, all of that stuff. Like typically the story that usually ends up isn't the story that you're saying, but I guess that's why we're here, right? We're here to like inspire people to like to take these steps. So as the people on the screen get prepared to maybe ask a question or give you a comment. Over these 8 years, where was the hardest part of your journey? Was it in the beginning or is it now or like how did it go for you?
Definitely, the loss of my mom was very hard. Um, in terms of sobriety though, that wasn't the hardest thing. I think the hardest thing for me was, when my mom passed away, she knew I was okay, right? And I knew I was okay. And they talk about it in the big book. When we start to rely on our laurels means that we are satisfied with what we've done so far with our recovery, that we stop putting in the effort, for things to grow. And I'd stopped doing that. I was okay that I thought like, okay, I'm in university now. I got through the loss of my mom okay. I'm sober this long. I'm doing all right. And I stopped doing the work. And that was when it got hard because I started to be irritable, discontent, and I was having that same empty feeling all over again. And last year, actually, I had a huge mental breakdown. 7 years in sobriety, I had a huge mental breakdown in Sturgis, South Dakota, with my ex. And I was not happy about life, and I wasn't being honest. I wasn't being honest about what was going on for me. And I got so irritable, discontent, meaning I didn't like life and I didn't see the point. And I was like, that was the hardest part for me because, but I look at it as a blessing now. It was the hardest part for me because, I didn't even want to drink. I knew that first and foremost, but in sobriety, I didn't want to drink at that point. I literally just did not want to be here because of how dishonest I was being with myself, or like how long I kept it up. That I got to a point where drinking wasn't even an option. It's just I didn't want to be here anymore. And and I had Austin, right? I'm taking care of Austin, and I couldn't, that wasn't a choice. It could not be a choice for me, so I had to get right into trauma therapy and talked with Amanda, my sponsor, and she brought me through the big book, and it saved my freaking life. It really did. Doing those steps.
Amazing. Yeah, and like I guess that just goes to show, like for me as well, and I know Amanda would agree, and probably Brad and anyone who's in recovery, like this journey doesn't just stop because you get sober. Like the insanity to drink or suicide, these things are real, right? And working progressively in our own recovery program, looking at ourselves and like helping others, like you said, is one of the keys. And I think, fellowship and having these people to talk to and, maybe that's one thing Michelle could take away from this session today is like talking to other alcoholics has always been a key to my recovery too. And you mentioned it, and I know Amanda would agree, right? And we have to because our minds think a little differently. And so once we understand that other people can relate with us, um, it's a good thing. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Roberta?
Somebody did. Would you share your Dene prayer your mom taught you? Did I mention that here? Because I mentioned that somewhere else. I feel like. Okay, I'm gonna teach you guys. My mom, when I was in my first year of sobriety, and my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and I started going to ceremony. I needed to find my own higher power, right? I needed to find my own understanding of him, and I really love ceremony. And I asked my mom to teach me a simple Dene prayer that's just for me. And she taught me Sadarye Mercy Dunsane Goha. That means God, thank you for right now. But when you translate to English, you lose a lot of the spirit of it. Dunsane Goha, right now. It means more than right now, right? Doing Sinegoha, everything leading up to right now. It's like having complete and total faith that Creator, took care of me, and I'm so grateful. And later on, it got longer. My mom did teach me a longer prayer to add to it. Sadari mercy dun sanegoha sa kanal ni hatari asiye na laki nunia. I'm putting my life in your hands. Sa kweno, sa kiko, and ni ama, my siblings, my household, and my mom. Sadari nakointh ni, watch over it. And then, but before that, the first prayer that she taught me was in active addiction, and it was Sadari Samunle, God forgive me. But that last prayer, the longer one, I say that all the time.
Amazing. I love that. A little bit of language teaching on our Zoom call today. Awesome.
Tapui.
Does anyone have any final comments or questions for Roberta before we bring Brett on?
What do you do for fun since you're in sobriety now?
You know how I said I used to read a lot of books?
Uh,
I read like 10 book series now. That's actually what's really fun for me. I love to read books, but like when it comes to socializing, I do way too much. I go to round dances, I go to ceremonies, obviously. I go to all the sober events. I go out to like shows and stuff like that, the Indigenous shows. Like my recovery is at that point where it's not triggering for me. So I will go out to those events. Um I just do everything and anything. If you know me, you know me.
And the
Oh, and I ride
beautiful,
motorcycles.
yeah, and like in recovery, you can do everything and anything, right? That's the message today. Like working a good program of recovery, you can do anything, and the sky's the limit, right? You're a 2-degree honors teacher, like life's amazing, and it can really be amazing for everybody. But I think it's more than just being sober.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we got to start there, right? You didn't learn all those lessons in, one day or 1 week or 1 year, right? It's taken 8 years of you struggling and getting through it and getting over it and relying on your pillars and, creator and ceremony and
Creative.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, thank you so much, girl. And without further ado, we'll get on to Brett. And Brett, don't think that you can't fill in your whole 25 minutes or 30. Just keep going. Um, we will be going a little bit over time. But Brett is a Sundance brother of mine. Met him probably 2 years ago. And when I met him, he wasn't in the shape that he is in now. And I'm going to let him tell you about that. Thank you so much, Brett. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. Yeah, so my name is Brett. I tell you where I come from. I live in Edmonton. I was born in Edmonton. Grew up just outside Edmonton, in a small town called Devon. My ancestry on my mother's side comes from England on my grandmother's side, and then Eastern Europe and Ukraine on my grandfather's side. And on my dad's side, it's my grandfather was Polish, and then my grandmother was First Nations. And so when I grew up, I didn't know my dad. My dad left when I was 2, and I was more or less raised by my mom and my auntie and my grandma, and raised by women. And he was a more or less a good upbringing, But with that said, all the men in my life were drinkers, and it was very normalized to have alcohol around me throughout the whole of my life. And I lived a pretty good life. Growing up, I was raised as a white kid. Um, but now that I look back, I was raised as a white kid that was taught the doctrine of discovery in school, and was taught somewhat to be that racism and alcoholism were normalized. And so, as I went into my adulthood, I I went to Australia when I was 19, or sorry, when I was 21, just as an adventure. And at that time there, I'd met someone who would become my wife. And we met as, just young kids partying, having a great time. And then as life continued, that style of life just continued, just always partying, always having a good time. And alcohol was a part of that. Now, with me being a drinker, I wasn't an angry drunk. I never got into fights. I wouldn't really like spout my mouth off, but I would black out. I would get so drunk to the point that I couldn't speak, and my words would just be gobbledygook pouring out of my mouth. I would lose nights. I would have big, deep, long conversations and not remember any of them in the morning. And then I carried a lot of shame around that. But my wife was very understanding and compassionate, and then we would talk about it and get through it, and I would continue. So I never really got to that point going throughout my life that I saw alcohol as the problem that it was in my life and the way that it was holding me back. So now when I was 25, I was living overseas, and I traveled a lot throughout my life. It's my goal was to work in international development, and I worked and lived all over the world and things like this. And one point I was living in the UK and got a phone call and said that my dad had died. And now I always knew that I had Indigenous ancestry, and I knew that it was from my dad. And I was always interested in it. But then when I found out that he died and he died of suicide, then it brought up a lot of these questions in me as to what caused him to make these decisions, and because I know that he was an alcoholic as well too, that he had found sobriety, but through Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't really know his story at all. But I felt abandoned by him when I was a child, and then abandoned by him again when I was, a young adult. And I don't really realize how much of that abandonment and that wound that I carried on. A lot of it was anger that I carried through, and I eased that anger with drinking. But with that said, I was also quite functional in my life. I went to school, became a paramedic, and then I did 10 years on an ambulance, and I worked hard and I had a good life. But with that, uh, I would use alcohol to numb the stress of working on the ambulance. So a lot of the stuff that I saw and dealt with and things, I would try to forget it by using alcohol as well. It was not uncommon for me to come home at 6 o'clock in the morning after working 4 days straight and drink a quarter bottle of whiskey in the bath at 6 o'clock in the morning and just passed out by 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then wake up at noon, smoke some joints, and then maybe start drinking again at 5 or 6 in the evening, and probably drink for about 3 or 4 days of my days off. This is just normalized. But because I was high functioning and I was working, I was making money, I was showing up to work, alcohol wasn't getting in the way of my work activities, so didn't really see it as a problem. And I would go, once a month it was okay, and then I'd have blackout, and I'd have a blackout. And it would constantly just be this repetitive action in my life that it would just keep happening. But again, I would go through this process of apologizing, feeling shameful and regretting it, stop drinking maybe for a week or so, then it would just sneak back in, and everything it was a cycle. Now in 2017, I hit the wall, and I crashed with my mental health, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from my time on the ambulance. And at that point, the only really coping mechanism that I knew that I had was to drink. So that's what I did. And knowing now that pouring alcohol all over a trauma brain is the worst thing you can do, but it's all that I knew what to do. Is I was agnostic. I didn't have any relationship with spirit at all. I didn't have any relationship with my indigenous culture. The culture that I grew up in was that of a drinking culture. And so I didn't really feel like I had any sort of stability or base. And so at that time, I uh, I with the PTSD, it just changed my personality. I didn't recognize who I was. I was having bursts of rage and getting in arguments all over the place, which was very uncharacteristic for me. and it started to affect all of my relationships in my life, with my family, with my wife at the time, and I felt like I was like getting in arguments with old ladies in grocery stores just because I was totally uncontrollable, and I just continued to drink because I thought that it was the one constant that I had in my life. Uh, so things got worse and worse. And to the point that my partner at the time asked me to leave. And that was the first time that I really contemplated suicide, because I knew that with my dad's choice, I knew that it was a choice and an option in my life. And it wasn't that I felt that, like my life was that bad. I just felt that I was that uncontrollable that if I decided to remove myself, then everybody else's life would get easier. So I was doing everyone a favor by removing myself, and that was my thought pattern at the time. And luckily, I didn't pursue that. But I remember this is the first that it came into my mind. So come 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, I just kept drinking and trying to heal myself. And the rage and the anger stopped, but then it turned into just straight up depression, anxiety. But because I wasn't having bursts of rage anymore, I felt like I was healing, that I was getting better, not realizing that I was just spending days in a row laying on the couch, smoking weed and drinking. Uh, and so, it got to the point that uh, after 23 years with my partner, she just said, she's like, I can't do this anymore. You're not the same person that I married. You're not the same person. This is not the life that I want. And she left. And so this is what really when my life completely started. My everything fell apart. After not being a paramedic anymore, and my all my identity was wrapped around being a medic, I went into a deep period of existential dread. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my place was in the world. I didn't know what I had to contribute anymore. I felt like my profession was taken away from me because I was crazy and I couldn't handle things. Now my wife had left. I had a major financial breakdown and it pretty much like was very close to going bankrupt. Distance between my friends and my family. I was just a complete shell of myself. I'd lost about 35 pounds just from straight up anxiety and not eating. Uh, and in the meantime, I kept going back to India because I developed this life of living in India and this two versions of myself. So in 2023, I found myself in India, uh, alone. My ex was there, but she was living her own life. Uh, yeah, and I saw everything turning, just completely falling around me, and that was the second time that I had suicidal thoughts. I was standing down at the beach, watching the tide come in, and I thought, well, it would be that easy just to take all my sleeping pills and drink a bottle of whiskey and just go for a swim and maybe never come back. Then, that was really my do or die point. And I decided that no, I'm not going to make this choice and I'm not going to die, that I am going to do, and I'm going to fix this. And I had a feeling deep down inside of me that spirituality was the answer. But I was, like I said, I've been agnostic, and I'm like to the agnostic to the point where I was like, I don't need that, don't need that. That's silly. Um, but then, as my life again was crashing at that moment, I had a series of unfortunate events. I crashed my motorbike, which put me in bed for 3 weeks. And when I was laying in bed, because I'd busted my leg up pretty bad and I couldn't walk and stuff. And when I was laying in bed for days and days and days in a row, I would meditate and I would like reach out to the universe and I would ask the universe, like, why are you punishing me? Like why does the world hate me? I don't get this. Why when I've done such good things for the world, why is it all just bringing negativity to me? And through that time, I was just reaching out and grasping everywhere I could, trying to reach out to some of my friends and trying to just reach, and I was finding no answers. And then my leg healed, and I was like, "Yay, I'm better and better." The very next day that my leg healed, I went out to get a tattoo, and it got infected, and I was back in bed for 3 more weeks. So here I was now 6 weeks laying in bed, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And at that time, I went into a deep meditation, and a spirit guide came to me. He was a horse with a Indigenous warrior sitting on the back of it. And I looked at me, and he told me that this is my answer, is to pursue spirit. And so I did. And at that time, there was an opportunity to do ceremony with psychedelics, and I did that. And during that ceremony, my dad came to me, and he told me to connect to my indigenous heritage. And he said, follow. He said, go to ceremony, connect with your indigeneity, find out who you are. This is your path. This is what you need to do. And a few weeks later, I left India and I came back to Canada with this new direction of ceremony. I think this is the answer. And as soon as I got back to Canada, one of my friends that goes to ceremony invited me to a sweat lodge. And I went out, and as soon as I got to the land, and the moment I got into that sweat lodge, I was like brand new. It was like flicking off a light switch that I was like, I'm sober. I'm no longer a drinker anymore. It was just like that. As soon as ceremony entered my life, it was over. I had these long, long, beautiful dreadlocks. I cut my dreadlocks off and I shaved my head. And I said, this is my point of rebirth. This is me entering the world as an Indigenous man, as a man of spirit, as a sober man. And this is the way my life is going to be. And through that time, and as soon as I started going to ceremony, my dad came to me so many times in visions, in prayers, and we've developed this really beautiful bond together. That the only time I ever remember hugging my dad, I feel his body close to mine and squeezing him it's in spirit in Sweat Lodge. And so I've continued to walk this way of life. And I realized that being in bed for 6 weeks and going through all these terrible things that my whole life falling apart was my spiritual awakening. That's what it was. And that's you had to go through the pain to get to the light afterwards. But it took me 42 years, right? I'm 45 now, and I've been sober for just over 2 years, about 2.5 years. And in those 2.5 years, like how my life completely crashed, now it's just being rebuilt. And when I was in ceremony, and the first time I went to Sundance, I was given my name of Medicine Bundle Man, and I knew that that spirit was speaking through me, and that I was able to heal myself, but also help heal others just by letting spirit flow through me and being present with people and just being present in ceremony, and knowing that going to ceremony is also keeping the culture alive for other people that are reconnecting to their ancestry, and that are finding their along their own journey, that there's this ceremony is there for them, as it was for me, right? Like I said, it took me 40 some years to actually find it, but when I found it, it broke me wide open. And now I'm reborn, I'm brand new, my whole life has changed. Just every time I turn around, spirit is giving me another gift, another gift, another gift. And what it took was just for me to give up. I completely gave up and I said to Creator, I've got nothing left. I can't control my life anymore. I can't trust my brain. I don't know what to do. Please help me. And I just laid everything I had at the feet of Creator and I said, please help me. And what Creator told me was, if you walk your path, then I'll support you. And I said that. I said, Creator, I will walk my path. If you show me my path, I will walk it. And as soon as I started doing that, it was boom, everything changed. Yeah, and so now I go to ceremony to keep ceremony alive. I go to ceremony to let everyone else know that for people that are reconnecting, that were taken from their families when they were children, that were raised without their culture, that are trying to come home, that there is a home for you. And as I said, I worked and traveled all over the world, but when I started going to ceremony, I felt like I came home. Like this is like a big homecoming for me, not just to this land and to connect to this land of Canada, but also a homecoming here in my heart as well too. Because now that I do have spirit, and now I do have culture, and now I do have ceremony, these things are a core foundation of who I am. So when I had this big existential crisis after losing my career and my like marriage and all this stuff like that, I was able to rebuild this new foundation in a much more healthy way. And that foundation is not based around alcohol and substance. It's not based around work. It's not based around the need of having somebody else beside me all the time. It's based on myself and my convictions and my connection with spirit and my spirit guides and my sobriety, which gives me so much strength, knowing that I can do this. I can face life without this crutch that I've been using for so many years. Uh, yeah, and like you say, now when I look at my life, I know that I'm walking my path, and I do so because Creator put me on that path and is guiding me there. And yeah, it's been beautiful. It's been a whirlwind. Like I said, it's only been 2 years, but yeah, it took me a long time to get here, but here I am, and I hope that everybody else that's looking for this can find their way home as well too. Thank you.
Bro, thank you so much. You know, when you were in that really dark phase when life was falling apart and like the feeling of like hopelessness and like wanting to give up, like so many people get there and they don't know how to like break through that. Do you have any advice for, or what did you do during that time? Like, did you pray like to this, you're agnostic, did you pray to something and say, man, like you got to show up now because this is the end? Or like how did you break through that hopeless period that so many people get stuck in?
I realized at that time that I was so much in my brain, right? I was trying to control everything in my brain, and my ego was on overdrive. Because it was just trying to, just put everything in peace because didn't know what was going on. I gave up. I submitted. That's what I did. I stopped trying to control everything. I also stopped feeling sorry for myself. I realized that there was other people that struggle as well too. And I humbled myself. I humbled myself in the feet of Creator, and I gave up control. And I said, this is not working. I'm reaching out every way. It's not working. I need help." And as soon as I asked for help and I humbled myself, that's when it all changed. That's when help was given because Creator
How did you
answered.
ask for help? Did
Uh,
you say it out loud or did you like
I
just think it?
I said it out loud. I have an altar space in my house, and I sit in my altar, and I would literally say the words, "Creator, I don't know what to do. I need help." And then I would identify the things. I'm like, these feelings of betrayal, of abandonment, of jealousy, of like unknownness, of like of self-loathing. These things, I can't carry these anymore. These emotions that are dragging me down. I need help with them, and I give them to you, and I ask you to take these from me because I no longer can carry them. They're crushing me. Help me with these things, please. And so I identified exactly, specifically what I was looking for help for, and I asked those directly to Creator. And then within weeks, things started to brighten up. Um, and then even this year when I was sundancing, I felt like I was progressing so much, but I was still carrying, like dragging this weight of emotions and this weight of shit from my life. And it was like I was doing so good in my life, but then I just had this weight on me. So this year when I pierced with the buffalo skulls and I drug the skulls, I asked the buffalo to take this from me. I asked this spirit. I said, "This is why I'm pulling skulls this year," and I asked the buffalo spirits to take this off of my back. And when they pierced me, I took 2 steps, and then I just felt all of this pain be shredded off my back. Now I can see the buffalo spirit with this big sack of pain that I was there, and I see the buffaloes pushing them into the ground and forcing them onto the ground. And then I walked up to the tree and I just started bawling and bawling and bawling. And I felt this relief. And I said, "Thank you, Creator. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Buffalo. Thank you for all of it." Yeah, and this is the way that I've been, like, oh, like, just keep moving forward. Antidepressants didn't help, psychology didn't help. It was spirit. It was spirit that did it for me. And I did it by giving up and being specific about what I needed and finding culture. It was spirit and culture has given me this rebirth. Now I've got these long, beautiful braids, and they're coming down, and I'm so proud of them. And this is a sign of my rebirth and of my sobriety is my hair. I'm very, very connected to it, and it means a lot. So
And now that you work in the field that you work in, which was another gift from Creator and how it all happened and it was part of your journey, like are you able to carry like this message of hope and like change to like the people that you work with? Maybe describe a little bit of what you do, and are you able to change or bring the message there?
Yeah, so now I'm working in Indigenous services. I started as a training and accreditation director, and now I'm the senior deputy fire marshal for the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council. So essentially, I'm working in service to all of the Indigenous communities in the country for public service, and bringing in a training and education in the fire services and things. And so for the last year, we've been working on a youth wildfire training program where we've had 400 youth across the country that we've trained in these wildfire skills. Yeah, and through that, I talk about my reconnection journey, and I talk about how important that culture has played within my healing, and how reconnection with culture and reconnection with the land through stuff like wildfire can bring healing for the youth. And when I look at the youth, I see that part of the way that some Indigenous youth can lose their way is trying to find connection in like brotherhood and sisterhood, and they find that through gangs and find that through drinking in the streets and things. Whereas I'm trying to tell the youth that you can find that through a wildfire crew. You can find it by connecting and re-giving back to your land, by serving your community. You can find these same things that a gang and drugs and alcohol can give you. So yeah, I tell my story and I tell them that there is another way. There's another option for you, and the option is to be in service. Just as we are in service to spirit and to creator, and you be in service to our communities, that can really be the guiding light for us to connect and have this beautiful sober existence, yet feel really wonderful about ourselves, and find a way to heal our pain through culture, essentially.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to open up the floor. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Brett? Anyone?
Hi, Bill. It's Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Take
Hi,
it
Michelle.
away.
Hello, everyone. I did leave a bit of a comment for you, Brett. It was fascinating to hear your story of how you made it through that vacuum. They often call it the existential vacuum that just seems to like spin people around and around. And so I shared like a concept that I was introduced to by this fellow named Viktor Frankl. And it's like, how do we find our meaning in this place and in this world? And so you did a really good job at kind of putting that into perspective for me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's interesting.
Existentialism, I find, it was all about the who am I, what am I here for, what am I meant to do, what's my life's purpose. And I thought I was on that, and when I lost it, I didn't know anymore. And that's a scary feeling, not knowing what you're here for, and not knowing why you're getting out of bed every morning. And sometimes that's what leads to the drugs and alcohol, is just this confusion of who we are. Yeah, and so when I found spirit and found this direction and started walking my path, and the path that spirit guided me on, then I felt like I had purpose again. And that purpose was the catalyst for everything, is because I know why I'm here, and I'm here to be in service, and I'm here to be in service to my culture. And yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. It's deep and powerful, though, existentialism.
Mhm. Yeah, and I hear Bill say it all the time, just about people being spiritually sick.
Hmm.
And it's just one thing that I've heard many of the speakers on this that have joined us saying how they've, pulled out of things by reconnecting and getting back to who they are. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing, and quite an exciting life journey you've had. You look young, so I'm sure you have much more to come.
Well, I hope so. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that brings up a story yesterday. I help addicts, alcoholics, mostly Indigenous people, try to get sober and change their life. And like I've said many times today, this isn't about being sober, man. Like being sober, whew, it's almost harder than like just being sober only is a very difficult life to live. like, but in recovery and doing these things. And so this gentleman I was with yesterday, he's like, yeah, he's on it, man. He's on it. He's like, I'm gonna find my purpose. And I'm like, bro, you just keep looking within yourself. You keep serving Creator, helping his kids, and your purpose finds you. And like, that's kind of the deal. Once you like root out the things that block you, you ask Creator to help you. Creator came and started rooting these things out. Of course, you got to meet them halfway sometimes, or maybe 3/4 of the way, sometimes 10% of the way. But when you're really sincere on like this relationship and asking this, whatever it is, for help, it comes. But it's not like, oh, come and help me, and it's just like this easy path. Like, no, it's hard. But the hard part is the only suffering I really believe is the suffering of the ego. And so as the ego gets rooted out because it's trying to control everything, and it actually is there to protect us, and learning how to build a relationship with that fear-based ego is very valuable because you can talk to it gently and nicely and you don't have to resist it. And then it just lets its grip off. But then the service part comes. And like maybe service isn't something we want to do at first, but it's a necessary piece of this. And when you do service, you feel good. And the more you do service, the better you feel, the more you root out the rest, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's what all part of the humbling as well too, is knowing that there's something bigger than us, and there's a higher purpose for what we're here to give to and contribute to. Uh, yeah, yeah, humbling. That's gone a long way for me as well too.
Any final comments or questions for Brett before we get Michelle to say a couple final words? And then I'm gonna get Brett, if you could sing a song to finish us fully off today. So just stand by. Would you do that?
Sure.
Okay, just stand by. Any questions, comments for Brett before we pull the pin?
I see this, our Cal as well to your comment. Thank you very much. It's very touching. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, you're up. Say a couple words, and then we'll get Brett to
Sure.
shut us down.
Yes. Again, I just really want to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate all of your time and you sharing your stories. So we are working with Bill to do like some kind of I don't know if we're calling it like we have like an event planned we're in the Fort McMurray area. We're actually an isolated community for Chippewan. And so we're talking about in January or early February, I can't remember the date, but of like doing like a roundup, I think is the word, or just like some kind of big celebration in our region. So yeah, so we're just hoping that, we can help people in any way to hear your stories, connect. And as an administrator, I've just learned so, 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 so much every time I come to these. So, Marcito.
Yeah, and maybe we'll start mentioning that. We haven't had the final green light on it, but sounds like we're moving that direction. We are trying to put together like a conference roundup, fully Indigenous based, working with Acfn. Billwardlife is going to build it, get the speakers. We're just kind of in conceptual state right now, but it should be something really interesting and fairly big. We're going to do it, probably be a 2-day thing. So maybe keep that in the back of your minds. And, you know, if you can make the trip up there, let's make it something real cool. Maybe we'll do a call up meeting and get some of the speakers that we've had on this event in the call up section of the conference, which is like 5 or 10 minute shares of like your story and your journey. And like we can do that for an hour or two and, get multiple people. But we're going to have some real good things happening. And, once it's kind of fully formed, we'll put the word out and we'll advertise it and try to drag as many people up there. And I just want to give a shout out to Acfn too. Like they're trying so many things to help their people and to help all of our people, including, the Munyaos. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see the people there stretching out their arm to all people. And I hope more nations kind of get on board. And sometimes our nations, like, they have these borders and work together and there's resentment. And I see ACFN trying to like break those borders down, and hopefully we can get maybe some collaboration from some of the other nations up there in a way, right? In a way. So anyway, thank you everyone for coming and doing this, and we'll see you on November the 29th for our next one, and we'll have some more information for you, and we'll get Brett to shut her down with one of the songs he's learned.
Yeah, so I'll sing the bear song. I'll just keep it to two push-ups just for the time here. But this is the very first song that I learned and that I was given from one of my Sundance brothers as well. That when I first started going to the Sweat Lodge. Ni tamina Kisai go nanas go negua nanas go moya ni ananuena weya Yahweh 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 hey yo hey yo Ni tamina Kisai go nanas go negua nanas go moya ni ananuena Weya Yahweh 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 Hey ya hey yo hey ya yo hey ya yo ha ha. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, have a great weekend, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Thank you, Roberta, Amanda, for sharing your stories as well too. It's lovely to be here with you. Thanks, brother.
Hi.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Brett. See you,
Yeah, nice to
Roberta.
meet you as well.
Bye, Bill.